Okay, so welcome back to Think Differently. Thanks for everybody who's joining live. Like I said, if you have any questions at all, pop them in the chat as we're talking. I really want to make this as much of a conversation. Like I said, I can talk at you forever, so feel free to ask me any questions. Today we're talking about what my clients are doing right now to get more sales. And I want to kind of caveat a little bit, or just kind of set the stage, I guess, for this topic, because sales is a really big topic. We could be here all day. Just realized one more thing I need to do. We could be here all day. So two things that I think are important about today, so that, and especially for those of you who are on the replay, so that if this isn't the conversation you wanted to have, I just want to be super transparent and you can go spend your time somewhere else. But this is what we're gonna cover today. So first off, we're going to talk more today about the end of your sales process. Okay, so if we think about your customer journey or your sales process, right? If we just super oversimplify and make it really, really high level, there's essentially like three main sort of phases in your sales process. One is like lead gen, traffic, bringing people into your world. The next is not conversion. Nope. The next is nurture, right? Where we're nurturing our audience, we're telling them who we are, what we do, how we can help them, we're giving them free value, all of those things that we like to do in our content. This is a nurture opportunity that I'm doing right now. I'm just giving you my thoughts for free. And then we move into like the conversion process. That includes, people clicking on your links and considering buying. That includes having a sales call with them. That includes any follow-ups from those sales calls. That includes reaching back out to people who said, hey, I'd like to work with you, but not now, right? All of those kinds of things. This is the phase that we're going to be talking about today. So it's really more of the end of the sales process, which is why I called, why in the title it says to close more sales. So this is about closing sales. And again, this is not, I could be here for days. I could do like a whole 10-part 10-hour module, 10-module program on how to close sales. But these are just the things that I'm seeing rise to the top in terms of my conversations with my clients these days, the things that I'm paying attention to, the things that I see are working in 2026. So that's where we're going to go today, just to give you like a level set. It's really about that like last piece of the process. The other thing I want to say about it is that this is sort of how I normally operate anyway, but this isn't really a how-to, let me give you a sales script, let me give you a step-by-step process. This is more, again, themes, this is nuance, these are sales skills that we all need as CEOs to properly execute, grow, scale, run our businesses. And so don't ask today to tell you all the things that you need to know. Ask today to be places where you can be like, oh, that's the piece, I got that, I'm doing that pretty well, that's the piece I need to focus on, right? So that's my hope for today, is that this conversation will help you to sort of see where you need to focus your energy more, or where, frankly, what opportunities are you not seeing that might help you to close more sales. And so that's truly my goal and my plan here. The other thing I just have to say, and I actually meant to start off like this. I have to just very, very briefly acknowledge the state of the world at the moment, and especially the state of the United States. This is not normal. We are not living in normal times. Please call your reps. Please make sure, my US citizens, please make sure you're especially calling your reps right now if you're a woman, because our voting rights are on very, very shaky ground, including people of lower income status, immigrants, all kinds of things. So please make sure that you're doing that as well. And I also want to share something I talked to a client about recently, which is, so feel free to steal this if it's helpful for you. And then I promise I'm going to get back to sales, which is because she was saying like, today just like this shit doesn't feel important, right? Like this just doesn't feel important, what I'm doing here in my business, because I need to go call my reps, or I need to go take care of a neighbor who's afraid to leave their home, whatever the thing is of the crazy thing is of the day. And I just want to share, like, yes, also do those things, please. And personally, I find that my business's mission is more important than ever now. More money into the hands of more women gives us more freedom, more autonomy, more choice, more power, puts power in more women's hands, or even just more hands of the people who will use the power and their money for good. And so whatever you're doing in your business, whatever your mission is for your business, I hope that this actually sort of gives you a little bit more of a like, all right, here we go. This has to happen, right? I need to do that. I just feel that way about my business, and I hope that you're, like I said, please feel free to steal and copy that for yourself, because I think that's what's going to keep us going. And us tapping out and us being hopeless is not the answer. That said, please be sure you're taking care of yourself. There's a lot. Okay. And I also feel like sometimes it's just important. I'm just going to tell you, like, this is sort of how I'm dealing with the world right now, is like, I'm doing my thing, or I'm calling my reps, I'm doing my thing. I'm acknowledging right here, right now, that like the world is heavy for me. We also just lost a very important member of our community last night. I just found out this morning that he passed away. And so like literally everything has just like, I can't not say it. And then also I need to say it, acknowledge it, and get to the business of the day. And so that's what I'm going to do, however awkwardly that might be for me to start talking about that and then to move into business. Cause like I said, this is how we do it. We can hold all things. We can do all things. Thank you. I appreciate that, ladies. So, in the interest of getting more money into more people's hands, particularly women, let's jump in. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is, and this might sound so obvious, so please, like I said, please take this and find the nuance for yourself. Find the like more refined sort of like advanced piece of this, if you will, if this doesn't feel like, if this feels like, yeah, I've got this, whatever, Livingston. But the first thing I want to talk about is we need to take responsibility for our part in the sales process. We need to take responsibility for our part in the sales process. So what do I mean by that? We need to guide, let's just use sales calls for an example to start. We need to be guiding that. We as the business owner, right? If I'm on a call with you one-on-one and we're having a sales call, it doesn't mean that I'm like telling you when you can talk and when I can talk. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm like overly prescriptive, but it does mean that I am wearing the hat of the CEO. I'm wearing the hat of the primary salesperson in my business. For me, I'm also wearing the hat of being a coach to the person in front of me. So whatever it is that you do, also we want to keep on the hat of the expert, right? Because that person also needs to be speaking at the table, right? But I'm guiding the process. I'm guiding the conversation. I'm saying, hey, I like to have these calls in this way, or hey, this is what I'd love to hear from you. You mentioned this, this, and this before we hopped on the call. Could you talk a little bit more about X, Y, Z? And then I'll also make sure that I share with you, how I work with my clients. Would that be okay, right? It doesn't have to be exactly those words, but we are responsible for guiding that process. And I think on the one hand, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Okay, got it, right? But what I mean, where this shows up so often, and one of the reasons this is on my list for today is because I'm having conversations with clients about this, where I'm reminding them of this, right? Where they hop on a call with someone and the someone isn't like, hey, I'm ready to buy from you right now. Like, they don't have any questions. They're ready to go. Like, when you are in that position where it needs to be a conversation. The person needs to explore what it would be like to work with you. They need to ask questions. They need to ask scenarios. You need to give them, yes, I can help you with this, but no, that's outside of my scope, right? All of those things. How does your pricing structure work? All the things. When someone is coming to a sales call from that perspective, or I'm also seeing this come up, especially at the end of the call. If the person on the other end, right, if the potential client isn't 100% clear on their own, meaning directly telling you, I would like to work with you, I would not like to work with you, I'm not sure yet, I need to think about it, right? If they don't tell you that on their own, your job is to guide that conversation. Right? And so I've had several clients bring to me, especially in the last month or two, that's why this is rising to the top, like, well, we left the sales call, but I don't know if they're interested. And so I think it's really, really important, again, if you're in the driver's seat, right, if you're holding space is maybe a more softer way to say it, your job is to hold space. for that conversation. You're guiding that process. Your responsibility is to guide that process, not to ask the client, not to respond just to the client, right? You're responsible for guiding that process. And a part of that for you is making sure you get some level of clarity at the end of that call of what the next step is, right? And this doesn't mean, I could go on and on. I'm so tired of the crappy advice online that tells you that if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, or that the person has to decide on the sales call. 100% no, that's not how all humans make decisions. Humans make decisions in different ways. And so we want to be able to leave space for somebody to go, hey, that's awesome. I want to sleep on it. I want to think about it for a couple of weeks. I want to finish this thing. I literally talked to someone yesterday that said, I'm moving and my brain is not on. I really wanted to have this conversation with you now, and it's going to be a month before I can finish thinking this through, right? To just let that be okay, but also to get that clarity so that I know I'm not following up with her in 2 days being like, hey, have you thought about working with me yet? Are you ready? Let's go, right? Like, that's so inappropriate. But if I don't get that information, it's my responsibility to get some level of information, whatever the person's comfortable sharing, so that I know what the next step is. Is the next step thank you, no thank you? Is the next step on either end? Is the next step, maybe I need to think about it? Great, maybe I'll follow up with you next week. Or maybe I need to think about it, I'm getting ready to move in a month. Great, I'll follow up with you in a month or two, right? Those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be the yes or the no. I think it's the gray area when it's not a yes and it's not a no. That's where your opportunity is to remember that your job is to facilitate that process and to get, again, that's enough information to know what to do next. And without that, it can just really make that sales process really hard. And then you're left guessing, trying to read somebody's mind. And I find that a dating reference feels important here, right? If you haven't, if whether you're, go back to the days of dating, if you're not in that space right now. When you found yourself sort of spinning on like, is this person interested in me? Are they gonna call? Whatever that, sort of spin is. We've all had friends where we needed to guide through that process. If you find yourself with that question, then that means you did not guide the process in your sales call because you're sitting around wondering, right? It's okay to not know all the information, right? Again, it's okay if they're not a yes yet, but at least to understand enough of what's going on so that you can figure out what your next step is. Because if you're wondering if he's gonna call, that's just not the space you wanna be in. Does that make sense? Okay. So your job is to guide the sales process. Your job is also to guide the follow-up process. And I think that part can also be kind of the like, is he gonna call dating reference that also happens, right? So you have a sales call and the person says, yeah, I need to think about it, I'll let you know. Great. You are still sending, I always recommend to my clients, you're still sending a follow-up email after the sales call to say, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you. I would like to work with you, assuming all of those things are true. I know you're thinking about it, take your time. When you're ready, here's the link to book the next call, or when you're ready, hit reply, or when you're ready, whatever they need to do, right? Give them that next step in the follow-up process too, so that you're not waiting around wondering, hoping. Again, I'm not suggesting that we like follow up with people at a, like if you feel like you're tapping on somebody, like if you're like, hi, are you here? If you're doing that every week, like that's, again, depending on the conversation, let me just actually say that. If you're doing that once a week, that means the person has indicated that if they do say yes, they'd like to get started right away. So then maybe once a week is an appropriate follow-up, but that we're not, so I'm not suggesting that, I feel like I'm giving you guys a lot of caveats. I'm not suggesting that we are overly follow-uppy. That's not guiding the process. The guiding the process is, hey, where do you stand? Where do I stand? Great, I'll follow up later. And so that's also in the sales conversation, but it's also in the follow-up process. So if you feel like, oh yeah, there's a couple of people that I just don't really know where they stand, here's my next piece of advice. Be direct, be clear, and ask for what you want. Be direct, be clear, and ask for what you want. Women, we were not taught how to do this. I was not taught how to do this as a kid. I was not taught how to do this as a teenager. I was barely taught how to do this as an adult in my corporate jobs when I was coming along in my 20s. We have to be clear. We have a right to be clear and direct, and we have a right to ask for what we want. We might or might not get it, but if we don't ask, we may never know. And I see so many people leaving money on the table because they aren't directly asking someone, where do you stand? And that's okay to ask. Something I always say, again, I'm just going to go back to the dating reference, is I do not play hard to get with my potential clients. I do not play hard to get. I'm very clear. Hey, because I also am very picky, and I don't want to work with just anyone. I want to work with people who I really see a fit for. And so if I'm telling them that so you also, we have to have some integrity here too, and we need to have some discernment around the right fit person. It's not just somebody who will say yes to me, right? Just like dating, we don't really want that either. We want somebody who is a good match for us. But once you know someone is a good match, don't play hard to get. Oh my God, like this is what women were taught, at least when I was coming along. Be clear, be direct, and ask for what you want. Hey, I think we would work really well together. I would really like to work with you. They can still say no, right? I'm not like dictating this for them, but I am on my side of the street. I'm owning my responsibility. My responsibility is to tell them who I am, how I can help them, how I can't help them, to answer any of their questions, and to tell them that I'm interested and to make them a very clear offer. So be direct, be clear, and ask for what you want. At any point in your sales process, if you've got that, like, is he gonna call thing? Like, again, and sometimes we have that when we've sent an email out to follow up and we're waiting on the return back, right? Like, so sometimes we just need to wait and move on to the next person or move on to the next thing on our list and let the person reply. And they're not gonna always reply in 36 hours or whatever. Like, we have to have some patience and give them the opportunity to be real people. But if you're not in that space and you didn't just send a message and you're just wondering and you're kind of finding yourself spinning on that, like, is he gonna call kind of a vibe? Then most times, 9 times out of 10, I'm not one-on-one coaching everybody here today, so you have to have your own discernment here. But 9 times out of 10, the answer is, great, that's an opportunity for you to be direct, be clear, and ask for what you want. Follow up. Okay, a couple other thoughts on being direct and clear, and this is also really nuanced, but I think it's important. Okay, so I find that most of the time we fall into so simple but so effective. Thank you. Good, I'm glad. I think most of the time we tend to approach, at least my clients are people who love what they do, people who are really focused on ethics and integrity in their work and their sales process especially, people who are experts at what they do, people who care a lot about the work they're doing, the clients they're serving, sort of the brand of their business, in addition to they want to make money, they want to scale, they want to grow, they want to have financial freedom, all of those things, but they want to do it in a way that also gives them an opportunity to have a life that does it in a way that, serves the greater good in addition. And so what I find with my clients is that there's oftentimes we're so worried, and I say we because I used to do this too, and I still have my moments, we're so worried about being the salesperson that we hate, that we get the ick from. Like, we're so worried about that, like, used car salesman avatar, that we swing the pendulum to the whole other side, and we're like, okay, well, you let me know if you're interested in, bye, and I'm not even gonna make you an offer because I just definitely don't wanna be pushy. I definitely don't wanna be slimy, right? And so we swing the pendulum to the other side. So my guess is if you're here, you are not a pushy, slimy salesperson. My guess if you're here is that you're not interested in telling people what to do. My guess is if you're here, you're not interested in guilt or manipulation tactics. If you are, you're in the wrong place because I'm never gonna teach you how to do that. And so also I wanna say, I have a coach from many, many years ago who's passed on, and one of my favorite pieces of advice that she gave me, or coaching that she gave me, oh, I'm getting chills. Such a brilliant human. But I love to pass this advice on, one, because it's her legacy it's her legacy, but also I just think it's so helpful. She said, if you just like put yourself on a continuum, right? And somebody who's like the super slimy, pushy salesperson is on the other side, right? And the person who's swung the pendulum to the whole other side that like doesn't sell, that just like leans so far back, they're about to fall back out of their chair, right? If that's the pendulum, if that's the continuum of like slimy sales versus unempowered sales, if I give you a pill, like wherever you are, let's say you're like somewhere over here, right? If I gave you a pill, if I gave you a slimy salesperson pill to take, you're still never gonna be all the way over here. Like, even if you took a little bit of, again, and I'm not suggesting slimy salesperson, but if you were more direct, right? You move in a little bit more in the continuum, right? If you are more direct, if you are more clear, if you're asking for what you want, if you're connecting the dots for people to let them know specifically how you can help them, knowing their situation, if I gave you that pill, you would still never be on that far end. You would never become a slimy salesperson. Like, you just don't have it in you because you're more likely to go to that other side of the continuum. So maybe take a little pill, not a slimy pill, but like a direct pill, or it's okay to ask for what I want, because you will never, the thing you're afraid of will just never happen. And that's actually slowing down your sales process, keeping you from playing small, keeping you from stepping into your power, because you're so afraid of being that or being perceived as that. As women, we are so afraid, legitimately so, because we've been told it's like, we're like marinating in the like, be soft, but be nice, but then make money, but don't tell anybody that you're serious, but then, right? No. So you will never be the slimy salesperson. However, so often we want to swing that pendulum to the other side. And I call this like lean back, like to the point of falling out of your chair. Because I think sometimes lean back energy is really good. We do want to have like a healthy detachment. But if you go to the other end of the extreme, you're leaning back. This is the like, again, you're applying let's maybe say outdated, I don't know, I'm not dating, so I don't know, but an outdated dating principle to business and to sales. Like, no. No, if you're applying a dating principle to sales, it's just not a good idea. But this is the like, I'll just let them ask me out. I will just sit back and let my life pass before me and not take any action and hope that somebody gives me a job, or hope that somebody hires me, or hope that, right? Like, I'm just being really dramatic here, but can you see the moments where you've just leaned back too far? The other thing I really want to share, and I've had so many conversations with clients, because again, most people aren't that far to the end of the extreme. And if you are, like, no problem, I can help you. I'd love to work with you. But most of us find these moments when that happens, right? It's like little moments of leaning back, little moments of not like standing up straight, little moments of not being clear, little moments of not asking for what we want. That's where I see it play out more. It's like little moments, little nuances. And again, this is where we could be leaving money on the table, because the other person who might have talked to one of your competitors, and the other competitor was like really clear and direct and said, I promise I can help you. I know I can help you. Like, I'd love to do this. And they're like, great, I feel wanted. The person's clear. They're good. They can handle me. Let's go. Right. And they probably would have signed with you if you hadn't been holding back, right? Or playing small or being too quiet. And so the other thing I want to share with this is one of the topics that keeps coming up for me with clients lately. We are in a trust recession in the online space in particular. I think it's actually bigger than just the online space. We can see world leaders, other things, side note. And this is for many, many reasons. If you want to get my sort of lay of the land of the industry, I have one of these Think Differently's that I did last year, and I think it's still mostly relevant in terms of what's really changed in the industry in the last couple of years. If that's helpful, just tell me here in the comments, or hit reply. If you're on the replay, hit reply, and just let me know that you want that, and I'll send it to you. But when we are dealing with a trust recession, it just means we need to do whatever we can in all aspects of business to help build trust with our potential clients, with people in our pipeline, with our audience, with our existing clients, all of the above. And so one thing that nobody sees, because everybody's trying to be so nice, right? We're trying to be nice. We're trying not to be pushy. We're trying to have somebody else guide the sales process, or take a moment where we're not asking for what we want. And what that does, that I think is so important to share, is that actually erodes trust with the person in front of you. It erodes trust. I have a couple of examples that I want to share. But essentially what I mean by that is, if you and I are on a sales call and I'm too far in that lean back energy to the point where I'm waiting for you to ask me out, the thing you, especially as a coach, right? If I just use myself as an example, but this is really for everybody. The things you might start asking yourself on that call, or maybe later, whether it's like conscious or unconscious, is like, can she really hold me in the tough conversations? Right? Can she, I have a lot of stuff. Can she handle me? Can she handle my shit? Right? Because she didn't say so, right? And again, that might be conscious or unconscious. They might be completely aware of that, or might be not aware of that. But if we don't feel like we can trust that person, and it doesn't mean just an integrity piece, right? I might feel like somebody's in integrity, but they're not strong enough to hold me. That is not going to be the person I hire as my coach. Period. Because I need to know that when I come to a coaching session and I'm having a day, that this person won't be like, okay, well, like, I also don't need them to like jump in and tell me that and like freak out either. Like, I want somebody who can sit up straight and hold me in that, and support me in that, and see me in that, and validate me in that, and help me find the path out, right? And so if I'm not expressing that in any way, shape, or form, can you see how I'm not even, and especially, let me just be really clear, especially if that's how I coach my clients, which it is, then can you see how I'm not even representing myself as a coach on that call in the way that I normally serve my clients? Because I'm like so afraid that I'm not going to make the sale. When the truth is, the more I put on my coaching hat, the more I ask for what I want, the more that I tell the person I can hold them and give them examples or whatever the appropriate situation is, the more likely I actually am going to make the sale, because people see the match there. People see how I really work. Or the more likely I am to repel the wrong people, which is also what I want, right? If somebody does not want a coach who can handle the deep conversation, who really just wants the like, tell me what to do and then I'm going to go do it and that's all I care about, right? Then that's I'm not going to be the best person for them, because I see things more holistically, and I'm going to be like, well, hold on, how do you feel about this? Right? You just lost a sale. How do you feel about it? Also, what could we do about it? Practically, yes, but also, how do you feel about it? Because if we're not addressing that, then we're not addressing the big picture, and it's going to happen again. So again, that's going to help me represent myself as I truly am, and that will attract the right people and repel the wrong people, and that's what I want to do. But again, if I'm not sitting there telling you that I can hold, or showing you, even just in my ability to have a difficult, awkward, sales conversation, then how do you think I'm ever going to be able to support you in anything that's going on with you? I recently, how do I want to say that? Can I say this without giving away confidentiality? I reached out to someone last year. I was looking for a very specific expertise to ask someone to and help me in my business. And I was looking for one thing in particular. And so I reached out to someone that I knew, but I wasn't sure if they did this particular thing. And I just said, hey, I'm planning ahead. I'm looking ahead. I wanted to start figuring out like who might be able to support me when I'm ready for this thing. And I wanted to know if you could do this thing, if you could do this thing. If you do, then I would love to like have a discovery call. If that's not, like, I'm thinking like 6 months ahead. So if that's too early, I'll reach out to you later. But I just wanted to check in. Is this you? And where do I go to book a call? And they basically wrote back and said, yes, it's me. But they did not do anything to honor my request of like, how do I book a call? What do I do? It was very wishy-washy. all I'm thinking is, I don't think you can handle it, right? They are probably a brilliant person, but I am really looking for somebody who can handle something for me. I'm going to pay them a lot of money. I want to know that it's going to get handled. I take my business very seriously. And they were so wishy-washy. Like, I literally was gifting them with, like, I'm probably going to be your client one day. Can you help me? And they were like, yes, that's what I do. But there was no follow-up. There was nothing direct. And I just felt like, okay. And I kept looking. And so I want you to know that, because I want you to see how when we lean back too far, from the perspective of not being the slimy salesperson, from the perspective of trying so hard to be honoring the person in front of us, that we miss the boat because we've swung the pendulum so far that trust, and that's what I mean by trust, right? That trust just isn't really there. And it's so easy to build trust when you're already an authentic and ethical person who's really good at what you do. It's actually easy. Like, you don't have to work at that. You just have to put it out there. Does that make sense? Like, you already have, most of the time, we already have what you need. I had a friend recently tell me that, like, they know somebody who needs me, who needs coaching, because they don't have any customer service expertise, and that's just not exactly what I do. But I just thought it was such an interesting concept. And I said, yeah, well, if he decides that he needs help, then he can reach out to me. But, like, you telling him that he needs my help, like, that's not going to be helpful. Anyway, so my point is, we need to be able to build that trust. That's an easier thing to do when you have those customer service skills, right, that I was talking about. It's actually so much easier. We just have to give ourselves permission to put that out there. Easier said than done. This is why I'm talking about this today. And this is why, like I said, I've got clients that are doing really, really well, and they're still working on these skills. So I just also want to say, these are skills that we need, whether we just started our business, whether you're growing, whether you're scaling, whether you're shifting to another, whether you're pivoting to some other kind of offer, whatever is going on in your business, this is always something to hone in on and something that we can always work through. Okay, let me just check my notes. Okay, so we've got the pushy, slimy salesperson. We've got the lean back, oh my God, I'm gonna, like, fall out of my chair. We don't really want that. The sort of, like, happy medium, middle, if you will, goal is leaning in with detachment. So I'm gonna lean in, I'm gonna leave my shit at the door, right? I'm here to serve the person in front of me. I'm gonna look at the call as I would a job interview. I want them to want me, but I also want to want them if we both say yes, right? This is a two-way street. And I think oftentimes we take the sales call of the, like, well, I just want them to like me, right? Like the person on the first date, again, the dating advice that doesn't serve business sales. The person on the first date who's, like, just kind of acting like the person that they think the other person wants so that they will like them and ask them out. Again, ask them on a second date, right? If they're just, square peg, round hole, or if they're trying to figure out what that other person wants so that they can be that, right? You might get the second date. I don't want that, right? That's not, we have to approach it from the perspective of a fit. And we have to put ourselves in that process. So we're not approaching sales just from who will say yes to us. We're also approaching sales from who do I want to work with, and being clear and asking for what you want, asking questions if you don't already have that information when the person's sharing with you what's going on with them. Asking that information of your client can be so empowering. It also helps to build trust, because when you ask them a question about something specific, hey, I like to work with people who blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me a little bit about that side of your business or that side of your whatever it is that you do? People really appreciate that. And if they are a match, that also will help build trust. And then leaning in with detachment, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm not coming to the call from a space of, like, holy shit, I need a client, right? I'm instead going to come to the call, like I said, leaving my shit at the door. No matter what's happening in my business, that is over here. I'm like pointing to the door, like you guys can see it. The door's over there. I'm leaving my shit at the door and I'm coming to the call to serve the person in front of me and to see if I can help them and to let them know that, and to see if I want to help them and to see if we have a fit. So that's the like lean in with detachment. That's the goal. Okay. I'm just gonna check the comments and then I've got a couple more points I wanna make. Leaning in with detachment, I love that so much. Good, I'm so glad. Okay, something that I always do at the beginning and I forgot to do today. Let me just quickly read through my little bullets on my email and let's see where we are in the process. I already know we've got some, I want to talk about pipeline. Okay, so we already talked about the question I'm asking my clients right now that's helping them take their sales skills to the next level. I just didn't pose it in a question for you guys today. So that question is, did you ask directly for what you want? And if you didn't, right, so if this is like after a sales call and you like, yep, nope, didn't do that, fine, can you do that now? How can you do that now? Can you send them an email? Can you, like, whatever the situation is, you can follow up and either ask them to get on another call if that's appropriate, send them an email and say, hey, I forgot to mention, blah, 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 right? You can always sort of solve that. But did you ask for what you want? How you might be leaving money on the table and where to find those sales opportunities in your business. We already talked about how you might be leaving money on the table in like a sales call or follow-up process. I've got one more to share with you about your pipeline. The number one thing that's sabotaging sales calls unnecessarily in the simple shift to make sales calls feel easier. Not guiding the process. Right, so we already talked about this. Your job is to guide the process. That's the first thing, the biggest thing I see that's sabotaging people. And it's also just so easy to fix, right? When you're like, oh yeah, I'm not in the driver's seat. And then I have a mindset piece, the mindset to bring to each of your sales calls, especially for women, that'll help you stay in your power and close more sales. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about this one first. When you're on a call with someone, when you're following up with someone, when someone is already, I'm getting stuck, when somebody is already in the sales process, right? So this isn't when they come in like through traffic and lead gen. It isn't when you're nurturing them. It's when they've already sort of started to engage themselves in your sales process. So this could be they've bought a small ticket item of yours. They've signed up for a discovery call. They've, whatever else. They've even like had like they've even bought from you before and they left, but there is an opportunity for them to come back. At any, let me just see how I wanted to say this. At any phase in the process that someone is in, if you're in, and I think the sales call is like the easiest example, please remember, this is the mindset I always bring to my calls. Please remember this person has already raised their hands to be sold to. And I don't mean slimy salesperson. I don't mean that they've decided 100% to hire you. But if you think about that message that I sent to the person, the expert I was trying to hire in my business, I had raised my hand. I was like, I would like to be sold to. Maybe there's a better way to say that, but like, I would like to engage the conversation and I would like to seriously consider you. Right? So I've raised my hand to be sold to. It doesn't mean I'm going to choose her. It doesn't mean that anything is guaranteed. But if someone has raised their hand, please take that as the permission. That's where you are not a slimy salesperson. Right? Because they've literally engaged you in the process. And so it's okay because they've actually asked you to guide them through the process. They're in your sales process. Again, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to say yes, and we're not holding them to that, but it does mean that that's how you can differentiate between the slimy salesperson and like a sit up straight, lean in with detachment. Hey, I'd love to engage you in that conversation. They've raised their hand to be sold to, right? Similarly, that's why like spamming somebody with your links doesn't work and feels gross, right? If somebody's like, hey, here's all my shit, buy it. Like, no, that doesn't feel good because I never like asked you to, right? But there's a big difference, right? If I've never even gotten into your sales process, right? Or I'm like I think it's very common to happen like on a networking call, right? Like somebody's like, hey, I want to help you with your thing. I'm like, I never told you I had this problem. I never asked you to help me. Or I never even said, ooh, I might need you. It's something, right? If I didn't give you anything, then you're not in the sales process. And frankly, you're not in today's conversation, right? Because we're talking about that last part of the sales process. That's the difference, right? So if the mindset to remember is this person has asked me to engage them in this process. This person has raised their hands to be sold to. So I am well within my right to engage them in that conversation, to guide the process, to be clear and direct and ask for what I want, right? All the things, to have that lean in with detachment. Okay, that is the mindset I wanted to share with you. Okay, I want to talk just quickly about your pipeline. These are people who maybe have bought before and might want to buy again. These are people who, let me just back up. I think the biggest piece of two things in your pipeline where I see people leaving money on the table. And it really, how do I want to articulate those? I think the most important thing to do, and this is something that I ask my clients to bring me to, this is literally something that I have brought to my coach as well, because it's just sometimes so hard to see when you're in it. Where are they in your sales process? Have they said, no, thank you? Are you looking at that? Are you understanding that and taking the no and putting them in the no bucket so that you don't follow up with them again? Are you understanding them in the sales process to be a yes, let's talk, yes, but not yet, right? Okay, great. We're going to follow up with them differently. We're going to treat them differently than somebody who has said, maybe I'm still thinking about it, right? So not everybody fits exactly this, but I feel like most people fit in the like, now, I'm interested now, I'm going to follow up with somebody differently there. I'm interested soon, and I'm interested later, and then I'm not sure, right? So there's like the yes, but not now. That's still a yes. Or it's at least a maybe. Maybe it's better to put it in a maybe category. And then there's the yes soon versus I'm not sure. We're going to treat them differently. If we don't know, again, back to the whole sales conversation, if you end a sales conversation and you don't know where they stand and you've asked, right? If you ask them and they don't tell you, you've done your part. But if you don't know where you stand, then you don't know how to follow up with them. You don't know how to put them in your sales in your sales process buckets. And then you don't know what to do with them, right? So the goal is to decide how can I figure out what bucket to put them in so that I know how to treat them. In other words, what did they raise their hand to do? Did they raise their hand to say, no, thank you, please stop bothering me? Did they raise their hand to say, I'm seriously thinking about it, let me get back to you next week? What did they raise their hand specifically to do? And when we don't put them accurately in the right bucket, that can also be where we get a little wonky. And most of the time, yes, sometimes people accidentally take somebody's no, very nice no, as a maybe. And that's not really leaving money on the table. That's just misinterpreting, and that's okay, and that's human error, and we just need to let that be okay. But I see people leaving money on the table when they do the opposite, right? I finished working with a client and they said they would like to work with me again sometime. If I never follow up with them, I'm potentially leaving money on the table, right? So 2 places you might be leaving money on the table. This is a really good exercise to go through on a regular basis because we often do it wrong. Do I have all the people in the right buckets? The yeses, the nos, the maybes, the maybe later, the maybe soon, the maybe next year's, right? Do I have all the people in the right buckets and reevaluating that? Because oftentimes you won't generally err on the other side. You'll err on the side of losing money. And then the other thing I want to say to that point is so often the money left on the table comes from people who have already been in your sales process. Past clients who could be renewals, people who have bought small ticket items that could be upsold into larger ticket items, or frankly, to come back to the smaller ticket item again if you have something. So if you have like, let's say you have 2 digital products, or like I have a 6-month program that is my long-term ongoing coaching program, but I also have a 1-week intensive, right? I have people that do not need long-term coaching, but they come in periodically to do an intensive, right? If I don't reach back out to them appropriately based on whatever we've talked about, like I could be leaving money on the table because they might just think like, okay, well, one and done, right? And I've seen a lot of my clients go, well, I already worked with that person. If you're a service provider, depends on your situation, right? Like I have some clients who like do web design, so it wouldn't be appropriate to be like, hey, I know we redid your website last year or 5 minutes ago, but like, do you want to do it again? No, that's of course not appropriate. So grain of salt, depends on what you do. But if what you do could be repeated and we're not reaching back out to them, they can tell you no, and they can tell you no, don't ever reach out to me, right? But like those are places where I just see my clients bringing to me like, well, I don't have anybody to reach out to. And when we really dig in, what about these people? What about that? What about that? They're like, oh, well, they already bought from me. Yeah, exactly. They're like the perfect person to buy from you again, right? That's actually, we spend so much of our time on things like lead gen and traffic and nurture because we're trying to bring more people in the door and butts in seats, and that's really important. And I'm not at all saying that's super, super, super important. If that part of your business isn't set, that will be really hard to then finish the process and make more sales. It's really, really important. But sometimes we get so focused on that we don't notice all the people in this final phase of the bucket that could be followed up with, that has a potential that you haven't nurtured that relationship even. I have a couple of clients from like 5 years ago that I still keep in very sporadic touch with, but I keep in touch with them. One of them rehired me last year, right? I didn't know that. I wasn't saying like every year, like, hey, are you going to hire me again? I was just checking in with them periodically to maintain that relationship. I didn't have to do that. They might have hired me back anyway. But just to say, like, some of that actually really matters. And when we don't prioritize that because we're so focused on the butts and seats okay, that person already bought, moving on, right? And it's like, actually that's a sustainability piece there. That's really, really important. Okay. Do you have a CRM or other tool you like to keep track of what buckets people are in? I use a simple spreadsheet. Nobody likes me when I say that, but I do. I use a spreadsheet. My brain, I think because of my corporate days, I had to keep track of lots of things in spreadsheets before we had like really good systems. And so my brain thinks in spreadsheets maybe more than the next person. So personally, that's what I do. And I have like little tabs, right? So I have separate tabs if somebody is like needs to be followed up with later, and I have ways to sort it. So it kind of operates like a CRM. I have actually looked into CRMs. I know a couple people have told me they recommend Dex because it's so simple and it's quite user intuitive, like user friendly. What is it called? The user experience, UX, is supposedly really good. And that's the one that's kind of on my list. I do think at some point that would be very helpful for me to do. I just haven't gotten there. Because for me, it would be more, just maybe more than you were asking, but like for me, it would be more merging some information. Like I have sort of my networking people that I network with, and then I have my sales pipeline, and then I have like my email system, and I'm really looking for something that will help me sort of manage things all together. And I'm not sure that is a Dex thing. No? Okay. So I do know somebody who does like CRM consultations. So if that's interesting, just shoot me an email and I'll put you guys in touch. Yeah, but I also think like a simple spreadsheet can also be perfectly fine. The main thing is, does it tell you when to follow up with someone, and does it tell you when not to, so that you can just quickly hop up. Like move it out of your way if you don't need to follow up with them for 6 months. Okay, I have another meeting I have to prep for. Thank you so much. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so let me just quickly to recap. Okay, so the question I'm asking my clients right now to help them take their sales skills to the next level, did you ask directly for what you want? And if you didn't, no problem. How can you do that now? Is there a way you could follow back up? Number 2, how could you be leaving money on the table and where to find those sales opportunities in your business? We already talked about like taking that responsibility and owning the sales call so that the right people who are in front of you, that you're not leaving money on the table there. And then we just talked about the pipeline. Your pipeline's probably bigger than you realize. So take a minute and figure out who's in what bucket. The number one thing that's sabotaging sales calls unnecessarily is that like not taking responsibility to guide the sales calls and doing that sort of like pendulum swing all the way back into the lean back, into the lean back side of things. The mindset to bring to all your sales calls: this person has already raised their hand to be sold to. You have a right to sell to them. And then the final thing I want to just say is, if you're like, okay, this is great, but there's so much more and I need help with specific client. This is one of the things that I do with my clients all the time. They will bring me specific examples. Okay, I talked to this person. This is what they said. This is what we did. This is how they reacted. Now what, right? Managing those like one-off conversations is one of the things that I do with my clients. And if they're not bringing those to me, I'm actually encouraging them to do that, because like I said, we can't always see like the whatever, like we're the, what is it? The fish doesn't know it swims in water. Like we are in the water, we are fish. We like cannot see like what's on land oftentimes. And so if you're in it, that's a really, really sort of, sometimes it can like the head trash can get in the way. So if that's a thing that you would like help with, this is absolutely a huge part of the work that I do with my clients. And I would love to support you, whether you are, I work with people at all levels of business. So if you're just beginning out, just starting out, if you are growing, if you're scaling, sales is just such an important part of the conversation all the time. And I'd love to help you. I've got 2 things to share. One is I have an intensive, as I said, I think I said this earlier. I have an intensive that's a 1-week intensive, and it's $1,150 US. 1,100, yeah, 1,150. It's a 1-week offer. So it's a really, really, this is actually one really great thing to focus on, is like, what are your sales buckets? Where are the places, the opportunities that you have in your pipeline that you're missing out on? We could do some very specific like examples of specific people in your pipeline and how to reach out to them. And then I also review documents for people. So you could send me the email that you were sending to them before you send it. Send me the draft. We'll work on it together, workshop, those kinds of things. So the intensive is 1 week, and then I have an ongoing 6-month opportunity to work together as well. That's where most of my clients fit, but I love to do both. And that really is the kitchen sink. That's your strategy. That's your sustainability. That's managing your time. That's your team. That's your sales process. That's your marketing. That's your mindset, all the things. And very, very available. I'm available in between sessions as well. I do a lot of reviews. I do a lot of messaging between sessions with my clients. I'm very available during the week to really help you to grow and scale the way you want to. I am also raising my prices at the end of the month. So you still have a chance to lock in what I'm now calling 2025 prices. You still have a chance to lock that in if you sign up to work with me by the end of the month. And really, it's if you just book a discovery call by the end of the month, because I've already got discovery calls booked for April, and I'm going to honor that for those people. So if working together is something that you would be interested in, I would love to support you. When my rates go up, my current rates are the same, but I'm going to be adding, and I did a think differently on this topic as well, and I'm happy to share the link there as well. If you just go to the replays, or just send me an email if you're on the replay, let me know if you're live. If you want a link to that, I'll be happy to send it to you. But I'm changing my pricing structure, where I'm adding a revenue share. 10% of your new revenue that you generate while we're together is paid in addition to a base rate. And there's a whole host of reasons why I've made that decision, as opposed to just raising my base rate. So my base rate is going to stay the same, but that used to be all you pay me. Now you pay me that plus a revenue share fee. And yeah, I'll leave it at that as to why. You can watch the replay. It's just an exciting sort of shift in my business, but I think it really serves. I think what I'll just say today is I think it serves my clients, it meets them where they are, because I do work with people at all levels of business. So, and it also helps. I think there's a lot of people right now who are looking for that comeback, looking for that sort of like, how do I regain the traction? And so with a revenue share, I really like it because yes, I still get paid an appropriate level for the base rate for my time. But if you don't make more money, you don't pay me any extra. And if you do, then we both win together. And so I just really like how that works. I've been sort of eyeing that model for some time, and it just felt like the right time to use it. So if you're interested in working together, let me know. You will get a link in the replay. There's a link to a consultation. The link to the consultation is in the chat here. And the very first step, I do require a consultation, which is really just my discovery call. The first step is just to reach out, have a conversation, and see where it takes us. If you're not the right fit, I'm very much the first person to say, hey, I know somebody else that would be a better fit for you. I will always let you know that. Okay, in 2 weeks, I do not have a topic yet, so you have full reign to vote for a topic. So if you're like, hey, I really wish you were talking about lead gen today, and we didn't talk about that, right? If there's any part of the sales process or any questions that you have that you'd like me to answer, if you have a topic that you've got on your mind, you can put that in the comments here, or you can just hit reply to the replay. Let me know. I always take your feedback. And I'll be announcing soon what the topic is. But we will be back here in 2 weeks, and I will see you soon.